to the actual news. I watch the news, so you don't have to. One very dominant story this week, it was, well, we deported somebody and sent them somewhere they weren't supposed to go. We sent Katy Perry to space. I'm kidding, of course. The dominant story was Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This guy was deported. It was considered, quote, an administrative error by the Trump administration. And then we had a lot of back and forth that I'll get into. But basically, I wanted to say right at the top, I feel like this story was actually a good example of where the press makes it about the individual involved with the story when the real story is not about this individual guy. It's actually about the fact that this is happening to multiple people all over, which means that things around us are changing in a particular way. And I'll get into all that as well. But let's start at the top with some details. So, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, this guy is a Maryland citizen. He is married to a woman that was an American citizen. Some people would refer to this as a green card marriage. I mean, it's a marriage where you got a green card. I don't know if it was necessarily to get a green card. Like sometimes you just get married to someone you like and you get a green card. And then sometimes you get married to someone you don't like at all to get a green card. Could be both. Anyway, he's got 3 kids. He was deported to El Salvador, to a prison that is specifically for terrorists. Now, what exactly was he deported for? Basically, when you look into it, all you can find is that in 2019, he was picked up in front of a Home Depot looking for work. That is stereotypically the Latino thing to be doing. That is like if I, as an Italian man, got arrested eating a bowl of spaghetti, combing my hair back. Basically, he's sort of accused of being a gang member. He seems to have some tattoos that signify that. I think he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat, which again is supposed to be a signifier of that. But like, dude, I mean, I know a bunch of kids that were just like college douches that wore Chicago Bulls hats. So you can't arrest or deport somebody because they have tattoos and a Bulls hat. There was a judge at the time who said, we are not going to deport you to El Salvador. You can stay here. So that was the ruling. Now, there are mass deportations happening under the Trump administration right now. They have gone ahead and activated what is called the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. I did say 1798, so we're getting a little retro with this thing. Essentially, that says that you can detain people who come from a country that has declared open war on the U.S. It was used in like the 1940s to detain the Japanese people of America. It was also used to detain Italians. So, look, I know some paisans that are very excited about this whole Trump deportation thing, and it's like, hey, listen, you might be next, Mario, so slow down. So this guy is literally on a plane to El Salvador, to a prison that is not like prisons in the U.S. It's known for human rights abuses. I would guess that's why the Trump administration is purposely sending people to it, to create, sort of an imminent threat for anyone that wants to enter the country illegally. There's no beds. You sleep on metal sheets. You're under fluorescent lights 24 hours a day. You eat beans and rice with your hands. Not the most pleasant experience you'll ever have. So he's literally on the plane to El Salvador. The Supreme Court hears about what is going on. They then vote unanimously 9-0, that the Trump administration has to facilitate his return. At this point, Trump defies them openly, and I would guess on his part, this is basically a strategy to see if he can do that, right? Because what happens here is fairly important in terms of what's called precedent, okay? If there is a ruling that Trump defies the Supreme Court and gets away with it, then that means he can most likely keep doing that. And obviously, a guy like Trump is not going to want to listen to what the 9 justices of the Supreme Court want him to do. So he defies them. There's some back and forth. I mean, it's pretty crazy to be witnessing it from both ends, because then, after admitting that this was just an administrative error, the Trump administration came out and said, no, he deserves to be there. He's a terrorist. And I don't even know what the word terrorist means anymore, okay? It used to mean that someone was committing a violent act in the name of a political movement. Now, when people call someone a terrorist, it's like when people call someone toxic. It's like, well, what did they do? Did they do a heinous crime? Or did they text you asking to wash a dish you left in the sink? They said he's a terrorist. They said that he's involved with human trafficking. At this point, there's been no evidence produced that shows he's really either of those things. And by the way, they are classifying members of MS-13 as terrorists. Again, I don't know if you would consider someone that's just in a gang to be a terrorist, but I guess terrorist is just being used to describe people we don't want. You know, I mean, words are supposed to mean things, right? I'm sure this is a little tit for tat thing that both political ends of the spectrum do, where it's like, well, you said everyone you don't like is a Nazi, so I'm going to say everyone I don't like is a terrorist. Cool. Words mean things, okay? Words have meanings, and we should use the words specifically in terms of what they mean. Otherwise, we could all just walk around talking like the people from The Sims. So, this guy is sent to El Salvador, to a prison. And by the way, we were concerned about Latinos taking Americans' jobs, but now we're going to outsource prison to El Salvador. This is the U.S. I thought we were good at prison. He's sent there. Obviously, this becomes a media storm, and there's reports about this guy beating his wife. His wife then came out and said that actually she had just been in a previously abusive relationship, so she wanted a restraining order on this current husband, and she lied about being physically assaulted by him in order to get the restraining order, which obviously is just a mess, and we'll probably just never know the truth in general about it. But that's kind of why I say it's not about the individual, okay? Similar mistakes were made with other movements, right? Like George Floyd. Like that guy, very quickly conservative media pointed out that he had done a robbery where he held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach. And it's like, okay, look, that's why you kind of don't make the people that are involved with these things sometimes martyrs. What the story with George Floyd and what the story with this guy truly is about is, why are the police allowed to do that to anyone? Why is ICE allowed to do this to a citizen, right? Because I thought that conservatives' justification for deporting people was, well, they broke the law. Well, now ICE is breaking the law. So do we have to deport ICE? So we're at this point now where you look around and start to say to yourself, where else is this happening? And there's a case in Florida where literally the judge is in court and this guy who's being detained by ICE, she's looking at his birth certificate and going, I recognize this. I recognize the watermark. It's not fake. She's looking at his social security card. She's like, this is legitimate. But we're the state. This is federal. I have no right to defy them. So we have to keep detaining this person. There's also examples that go beyond just Latinos. And I know people like to pretend every immigrant is just a Latino or a Hispanic person. No, it extends beyond that. It goes for every other person that comes into this country. And by the way, not to use this like bleeding heart sort of point, but like we're all, for the most part, immigrants, unless you're a native. Like the guy in Florida, he speaks a language that Mayans have been using here for, I mean, thousands of years. And so you're telling this guy, hey, speak English. And he's like, who are you, you fucking immigrant? So then you also have cases where ICE is arresting citizens, students that are pro-Palestine protesters, and they're in plain clothes. They're not identifying themselves. The video looks like a kidnapping, and it's basically for, speaking out against what's going on in Gaza. And if you don't know about the Israel-Palestine conflict, that is an episode for another day. So it's crazy because, like, with respect to that, the first rule of this country is that you're allowed to talk shit. First rule. And when you start arresting and deporting people for doing that, it means, one, you're not respecting the rule of law, and also you're revoking our talking shit privilege, which is kind of what makes us American. So many would say that this is a signifier of us turning into sort of a fascist nation. There's no one definition of socialism, fascism, capitalism, etc. that satisfies everybody. So it's actually kind of an arbitrary argument that I stay away from personally. But look, like, yeah, this is a signifier that they're trying to move toward what other fascist countries have done. If you grant the government the ability to do this to its citizens, I think they're probably going to abuse that power. It's been a conservative talking point for a very long time that if you grant the government power, they will abuse it. I think this guy that conservatives seem to idolize a whole lot, named Ronald Reagan, said that the scariest words you'll ever hear are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Well, now they're saying, hey, all these undocumented immigrants are committing crimes, which, by the way, statistically, they do not do that more than normal citizens. But they're saying, hey, the immigrants are making you very unsafe and we're here to help. And apparently Trump was supposed to be this like second coming of Reagan, but seems like he is using immigration to expand the government and therefore his power. Similar things were done during 9/11 with the Patriot Act, and you could even argue they were done during COVID. So, in summary this week, there's never going to be a rule that the government has that only applies to people you don't like, even if the people you don't like are a different color than you. So I would think on that. Otherwise, other little things, the dollar is down, so financially things are not going awesome. Elon Musk quietly admitted this week that, he thought savings were going to be $2 trillion, and they're actually, via Doge, 150 billion, and then they increased the Pentagon budget by $1 trillion. So we're spending more, and a bunch of people just lost their jobs, as well as a lot of businesses losing their federal contracts. So yeah, that's not like working or making sense at all. The Democrats, they're obviously working on this immigration issue. Most of the establishment Democrats people seem to be sick of. The other wing of the Democratic Party, the leftists, the socialists, etc., Bernie Sanders is basically like their most popular guy now, and he's like fucking 90. So he seems to have chosen AOC as his successor. I guess we'll see how that goes. In my mind, she's probably like a niche player at this point, but 3 years is a very long time in politics, so there is a real chance she is the presidential candidate in 28. And I'm not even saying she couldn't win. A lot can change. I'm just saying, man, there is a lot of shit going down. There are a lot of villains popping up, and not that many heroes you can see. Except me, of course, the guy sitting in his basement doing a podcast, right? But as always, I thank you for joining us, and I'll keep covering this stuff as much as I can. Please like, please subscribe, please show your friends. We had our relaunch week last week. It went really awesome. I truly cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in and continuing to engage with the podcast. And yeah, as always, my opinions 100% guaranteed to be correct. Thanks, guys. Folks, check out Magic Spoon protein treats for a healthy and delicious snack. Uh, I think it's healthy. Healthy is kind of like a relative term these days. I don't think anyone knows anything. Remember like Cliff Bars? These are healthy like Cliff Bars were, where it's kind of like it's just a candy bar, and they threw protein in it or whatever. And people thought Cliff Bars were healthy because there was just like a guy climbing a mountain on the wrapper, and you would just eat 8 of them and be like, yeah, I might run a marathon tomorrow. I don't know. And again, what is healthy? Clearly, nobody knows. What is healthy? Nobody has any idea. Okay, like, like are eggs good for me? I don't know, because the only nutritional information source I have is a reel where a very professional looking person says, "Don't ever eat eggs," and then the next reel is like, "All you should be eating are eggs." I Nobody knows. RFK replaced all the vaccines with beef tallow. Is that good? Maybe. Anyway, I got to get better at these ad reads. Magic Spoon protein treats. Check them out, or don't. I don't make much money off of this. Thanks so much for checking out today's episode. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share, go to theactualnews.net and check out our Patreon for bonus content. And we'll see you again next week.